They once called her Hollywood's Duchess. Now Hollywood won't even return her calls. Not long ago, Meghan Markle believed she had cracked the royal code, outsmarted the palace, landed the prince, walked away from tiaras and turned them into talk shows and headlines. But by 2025, that fairy tale spoiled fast. Faster than last week's jam from her own American Riviera orchard. Because when news dropped that both upcoming US royal tours would feature King Charles, Queen Camilla, William and Kate, but not Meghan and Harry, even her most loyal fans struggled to spin it. The message wasn't subtle. The monarchy just RSVP'd no to Montecito. And America's reaction? Finally, behind the yoga poses, podcast promises, and polished photo ops sits a reality. Even Meghan's PR machine can't blur away. The California empire she tried to build didn't collapse loudly. It faded quietly. Hollywood's power players are refocusing on the actual royals. Meanwhile, Meghan's brand feels like a reality show that teased big drama and never got renewed. They once accused her of stealing the spotlight. Now she can't even borrow it. But this isn't just about a missed invite or bruised pride. This was strategic, calculated years in the making. And the palace didn't have to do a thing. Because as this story unfolds, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. Meghan Markle's greatest enemy was never the crown, it was irrelevance. At first, it looked like a routine royal headline, until one missing detail changed everything. Page 6 broke it first. 2 major US royal tours planned for 2026, one led by King Charles and Queen Camilla, the other by Prince William and Princess Kate. The British monarchy returning to America in full force to mark the nation's 250th independence anniversary. But one name was missing. Missing from every press release, every insider quote, every official itinerary. And that absence spoke louder than any statement ever could. Meghan Markle. Not a whisper, not a mention, not even a courtesy nod to the California branch. And that silence. It was the loudest message the palace could send. Royal insiders called it strategic dignity. Translation: we're done pretending. After years of interviews, tell-alls and Netflix confessionals, the royals didn't argue back. They didn't explain. They didn't correct the record. They simply moved on without drama, without commentary, and most importantly, without her. Meanwhile, Meghan's PR team went into overdrive, scrambling to reshape the story. But how do you spin being excluded from your own country's royal visit? Even the American press, once her safest ground, framed it as intentional distance. The woman who said she was building a new legacy had just been left off the guest list for history. But what the palace did next turned a quiet omission into a masterclass in power and perception. One that caught Meghan's team completely off guard, because this wasn't just a snub, it was an eraser. What looked like a simple scheduling gap revealed something colder underneath, a royal strategy carried out with surgical precision. This wasn't an accident, it was a clean-up operation. While Meghan's camp was still emailing lifestyle editors for clarification, Buckingham Palace moved like a PR ghost, calm, deliberate, and silent. No statements, no rebuttals, no sources close to the couple. Just a message written between the lines of every official release. They no longer exist in this story, and the media picked up on it immediately. What started as confusion, why weren't they invited, flipped almost overnight into mockery. Why would they be tabloids that once thrived on Meghan's drama suddenly lost interest? Morning shows laughed off the snub with polite smiles. Royal commentators called it the cleanest break since Megxit. Even long-time supporters began to notice the shift social feeds filled with side-by-side comparisons. Kate shining at state banquets. Meghan promoting jam jars like a suburban influencer. The contrast wasn't loud, it was precise. The palace didn't attack her, it simply outshone her. And in doing so, it reclaimed the one thing Meghan believed she had secured forever: America's attention. But the story was only beginning, because while the monarchy moved forward effortlessly, Meghan's world in California began collapsing quietly from the inside. And what unraveled next wasn't her image. It was her influence. For years, Meghan believed Hollywood would always be her safe haven. The place that understood her, celebrated her, needed her. But by 2025, the spotlight she relied on simply went dark. The same A-listers who once packed her guest lists started ghosting her invitations. Producers stopped returning calls. Meetings evaporated. Glossy magazine covers dried up, replaced by careful, uncomfortable silence. Hollywood didn't cancel Meghan. It did something far worse. It forgot her. And in this town, that's fatal. When news of the upcoming US royal tours broke, the elite didn't rally around the Sussexes. They picked out outfits for William and Kate, George and Amal, Spielberg, even Oprah, all rumoured to be aligning themselves with the official royal events. The red carpets Meghan once imagined conquering were now reserved for the royals she walked away from. Behind the scenes, whispers grew louder. Brand fatigue had set in. Too many speeches, too few results. The mystique was gone. Even the relatable Duchess image had become a meme. Every smile felt practiced. Every appearance looked like a comeback attempt, but the audience had already moved on. Hollywood runs on momentum, and Meghan's had stalled. Still, she had one last card to play. A risky move meant to reclaim control of the narrative. Instead, it detonated. Desperation breeds creativity. And in Meghan Markle's world, it bred yet another rebrand. After months of silence, she returned with what was billed as her most authentic project yet. A lifestyle reboot. A soft, emotional video. A promise that this time, it wasn't about fame. The internet wasn't convinced. The launch of her new brand, another wellness meets luxury concept, landed with the energy of a reboot nobody asked for. Critics mocked the timing. Fans called it tone-deaf. One headline nailed it perfectly: the Duchess of Disconnection. The glossy rollout met polite indifference. The days when a Meghan post dominated feeds were over. Even tabloids that once tracked every outfit and eyebrow raise gave the launch a tiny mention, buried under entertainment briefs. And then came the cruel timing. She tried to sell a humble comeback just as the royal tours were capturing America's imagination. While Kate charmed crowds in New York, Meghan was online promoting jam jars and candles. The contrast was brutal and impossible to ignore. In chasing authenticity, she found apathy. As the new era fizzled, insiders claimed the mood in Montecito turned heavy. For the first time, even Harry looked unsure where he belonged. Beside his wife's crumbling empire, or in the shadow of the crown he once abandoned. But the storm wasn't over. It was only gathering strength. What began as liberation slowly curdled into isolation. The couple who vowed to build their own future now lived inside a gilded echo chamber surrounded by luxury, starved of direction. Harry, once the monarchy's rebellious heart, now seemed trapped between worlds. Too royal for Hollywood. Too Hollywood for royalty. The echo of his memoir faded. His voice, once defiant, now sounded worn. And the sparkle that once sold interviews dimmed into something far quieter. Something close to silence. For Meghan, the isolation cut deeper than anyone expected. The media empire she once imagined herself leading had shrunk to filtered selfies and sponsored posts. The empowerment message that once energized audiences now landed as irony. A duchess preaching authenticity from inside a gated mansion. Protected by staff, even her inner circle began to thin. Old friends stopped appearing. Former allies quietly stepped back. What was meant to be a bold new chapter slowly turned into an extended pause. Every attempt to reclaim attention only highlighted the distance she had helped create. Freedom was supposed to be the win. Instead, it felt like exile. And in that silence, the cruelest truth surfaced. The royal family never had to fight them to win. They simply waited them out. Just when it seemed the Sussex story had reached its lowest point, the palace made a move so symbolic, so deliberate, it removed any remaining doubt about who truly held power. When the royal jets touched down on American soil, it wasn't just a visit. It was a statement. Cameras flashed. Flags waved, headlines wrote themselves. The royals were back. King Charles spoke with quiet authority. Queen Camilla carried calm confidence, but it was William and Kate who captured the moment. Their presence didn't feel staged. It felt natural. From charity galas to state dinners, every appearance projected the stability the monarchy had worked so hard to restore. America was captivated. Once again, networks scrambled for coverage. Influencers live-streamed every step. Talk shows buzzed about their composure and charm, and the same media that once celebrated Meghan's Hollywood fairy tale now barely mentioned her at all. Not with outrage, not with criticism, but with indifference. And perhaps the most brutal part of all, the palace never said her name. Not once. They didn't have to. Their presence alone rewrote the story she tried so hard to control for the Sussexes. Watching from Montecito, it must have felt like déjà vu, the spotlight slipping away again. But this time, there was no scandal to spark it back, no feud, no interview, no explosive quote to reclaim attention. The royal family had pulled off the unthinkable. They won back America's affection without uttering a single word. This was soft power at its finest. Diplomacy wrapped in ceremony, elegance used as strategy. And when the tours ended, one truth rang louder than any headline. The crown didn't just survive the storm. It reclaimed the kingdom. Meghan believed she could claim. Outside palace gates and California mansions, something unexpected happened. The world moved on. The drama that once dominated headlines lost its pull. The tears, the interviews, the accusations. They began to feel like reruns of a show that had ended seasons ago. In London, the conversation shifted back to policy, not palace gossip. In America, attention returned to William and Kate, now viewed as symbols of stability and continuity. Online, the once loud Sussex squad faded into silence. Hashtags dissolved into digital dust. Even the global press, once obsessed with every royal whisper, started treating Harry and Meghan like background characters in a story they no longer led. Their brand of rebellion had expired, replaced by a hunger for authenticity that didn't require cameras, confessionals, or constant outrage. The irony. Meghan wanted to modernise the monarchy, but the monarchy modernised itself faster than she could monetize it. Every dramatic statement was overtaken by quiet action. Every bombshell faded against calm endurance, and the verdict became clear. Respect outlasts rebellion. As the spotlight drifted away, what remained was silence, the kind that follows when attention is mistaken for influence and the difference finally becomes impossible to ignore. Because if history teaches us anything, it's this: the crown always finds a way to shine again. And that's where the story stands. A lesson in pride, power, and poetic justice. The palace didn't shout. It didn't fight. It simply moved forward, leaving behind a silence that said everything. Across the ocean, the echoes of that royal rejection still lingered, whispered in headlines, debated on talk shows, and quietly felt throughout Hollywood. This wasn't just a snub. It was symbolic. A line drawn between legacy and limelight. A reminder that the crown doesn't compete. It endures, but royal storms never end quietly. There's always another chapter, another twist, another revelation waiting in the shadows. If you missed our previous breakdown, the one where we exposed Samantha Markle's claims that sent shockwaves across America, you'll want to watch that next. It connects every move in this royal chess game. This is Star Spotlight, where fame meets fallout and truth still wears a crown. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay close. because the next move in this royal saga may be the one no one sees coming.